And welcome to the Englert Theatre. My name's Katie Roche and I'm the development director for the Englert, and I first greeted you all at the debut Green Room event back in August when we were all nervous and excited, wondering what we were getting ourselves into. And here we are at the thrilling conclusion of what has turned out to be a very successful, wonderfully engaging, community-wide educational experiment. I'm thankful to all of the students and the presenters who have expertly guided us through examining everything from racism and homelessness to magic and tonight's storytelling theme. And thank you to everyone who's participated for doing more than just showing up, for participating with intention and a mind open to learning something new in hopes of changing the world for the better. So each Green Room event, Andre Perry, our executive director, or I have gotten up here to talk about the Englert's great experiment, Witching Hour, which is our new festival. It's only in its third year, as I'm sure you've heard in these past sessions, and it's coming up October 20th and 21st. And some of what you've learned is that Witching Hour is a little bit hard to summarize in a simple elevator pitch, but we do try to. We say it's a festival dedicated to exploring the unknown, discussing creative process, and presenting new work. So I could spend my time with you here trying to tempt you simply by telling you about different events that are happening at the festival. And I will share a few highlights. But first I want to say that the Englert and Little Village, our co-presenter, are bringing Witching Hour to Iowa City because we understand that a festival can actually function as an umbrella, a mechanism guiding participants on how to encounter new art and new ideas. When we as a festival community gather and we attend one, some, or as many festival events as we can fit into our lives, we are, like all of you who chose to attend these Green Room events, entering into a contract with ourselves to do more than just show up, and instead choose to meet each Witching Hour event with curiosity, critique, and attentiveness. So with all that said, it doesn't have to be as lofty as all of that either. You can just come nervous, excited, not knowing what you're getting yourself into, and you will leave with a better understanding, maybe over time, maybe instantaneously, of how we wrestle imagery, music, words, and thoughts from the unknown. So I will give you my three top, I don't know if they're my top picks, they're the ones that floated to the top of mind for me as I was preparing for tonight. The three things I would recommend. Number one, at Witching Hour, I would definitely go to the panel discussion with Latasha Deloach, Rakisha Harrington, Sophia Mahaffey, and Lisa Covington. And they're going to be talking about the impacts of working in a predominantly white space as women of color. That panel is called Invisible and Ignored: The Power of Centering the Voices and Experiences of Women of Color Through Art, Written Expression, Film, and Leadership. There's also, she's an exquisite performer, and her background on compositions will intrigue even the most flippant classic musical haters and fans. And three, Harry Kondabolu, a Brooklyn-based comedian and writer, who the New York Times has described as one of the most exciting political comics in stand-up today. He uses comedy to talk about the current political climate, colonization, and immigration, and I think he's saying some of the smartest things on those subjects today. So I was joking with people backstage that I've never had a speech where I mentioned pizza twice and colonization once, but I'm about to mention pizza twice. I want to invite everyone here to come to the Mill this Sunday at noon for some free pizza and a discussion about Witching Hour. Some of the festival organizers and programmers are going to be there, and we're just going to hang out and we're going to talk about the festival and talk about ways that you can engage more deeply with the programming. We don't want it to seem intimidating, but we also want you to find a way to plug in a real way. So free pizza, again, free pizza, noon at the Mill. I hope you all can make it. On behalf of the Englert staff, our board of directors, and the nearly 2,500 friends of the Englert and our volunteers, We are honored to welcome both Town and Gown to the Englert for the final Green Room event. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Hi guys, I'm Emily Summers and I'm a TA for the Green Room.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Cho and I'm also a TA.
I'm Tyler McCauley and I'm also a TA.
Our teams are producing tonight, so please give them a little love when they come out. They've done a lot of work. And all of our students took a few moments to reflect on some thoughts about the class, and they would like to share a few of them with you now.
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. There we go. So, good evening to all of you. I see so many lovely faces tonight. So, we are the students of the Green Room. And I'm not sure if it's been mentioned or not, but we just wanted to take some time tonight, before we get things started, to really show our appreciation for each and every one of you that has come tonight and that has come for so many other nights that we've been here at the Englert. From the bottom of our hearts. We students, and not just students up here, but students who are in the audience, of course, just want to take the time to say thank you. Thank you all so much for being involved in the Green Room and just showing your willingness every Monday evening to come and learn more about us and more about yourselves and one another in the community. We just wanted to take the time to say we appreciate you all, and we're very much looking forward to spending this evening with you all again. So I'll turn it over to some more of my comments.
Within these walls, we've been able to integrate what we're passionate about and what affects the others around us with our own educational perspectives, to become enlightened in ways that are not measurable on a Scantron, but rather through our own personal and collective growth.
We hope that the spirit of the Green Room encourages others to continue to learn, to expand their beliefs, and that we hope to inspire others through encouraging the world to learn.
Dear friends, thank you for being willing to continue your education and grow with us as students.
Thank you for considering us students to be part of your community.
And thank you for sharing your stories. You are not alone.
Stay engaged. Keep learning.
To our resilient community, thank you for caring enough about our community to want to make a change within it. We're so grateful you've joined us week after week here at the Englert, and we're eager that you are here to learn and had your genuine interest the whole time in wanting to work with us as students to build a better community for us all.
Dear friends, thank you for spending the last 6 weeks with us here in the Green Room. We're honored to have you join us in this space where we're free to have the conversations that don't always come easily. Please join us in taking what we've learned and using it to change the world, one step and one student at a time.
Dear community, thank you for joining us for these past 6 weeks. We have gained a greater appreciation and desire to not only maintain being active community members, but also seek out the communities, such as Iowa City and the University of Iowa, where things like the Green Room are allowed, attended, and encouraged.
Dear community, week after week we put our passion and creativity into an 80-person group project, and we thank you for allowing us to share with you our work that we took so much pride in, and for the energy you brought to the room. It would have been lonely without you. As students, we were able to take what we learned and have free reign. In a traditional classroom, we sit and learn how people can change the world, but in the Green Room, we get to get up and start doing it ourselves.
Dear community, thank you for joining us each week. Don't settle for comfort. Reach out, make an impact, inspire, be inspired, teach, learn, build, and grow.
Dear neighbors, you have proven night and night again that this community is dedicated to learning, not only about a plethora of scholarly topics, but also about the lives of others. Thank you.
Dear friends, we have enjoyed taking topics from an individual perspective to a collaborative conversation with you each week. We thank you for continuing the conversation beyond the scope of this class and for sparking the wonder that has helped us learn for the sake of learning. Thank you.
Dear community, we hope you know that everyone is welcome here, as education is for all. When we have each other's backs, when we support our fellow neighbor, no challenge that presents itself is too large. Thank you for joining our class at the Green Room.
That's a hard act to follow. That was beautiful. Thanks, guys. So when I saw that 1 million students had been affected by Hurricane Harvey in Texas, it was one of those stories that you see in the news that really sticks with you, kind of the ones that keeps you up at night. So I had this idea that we could help somehow with this class. And the thing with ideas is that they don't become things and they don't create change and they don't become real without people like you. It would not be without all of the students here that this project would have been so successful. I just want to say thank you so much to this community. You've raised $430 to send to a school in Texas, which we will release more information online to come where that's specifically going. But that money will be used to re-inspire a little bit of this magical education that we feel here in this classroom every Monday night. So you guys did that, so give it up for yourselves. We will still be selling them tonight. While we did hit $430, it'd be really cool to hit that $500. So if you haven't purchased a sticker yet, please do. They're $3 each. We'll be selling them just right where you came in at the end of the evening. Please let me know if you have any questions about them. I'd be happy to talk about them. And if people in class or at work ask you about your green room sticker and where it came from, I hope you tell them that it was a place where education became a verb. Thank you.
All right, hello. Welcome to the final public green room experience. My name is Natalie Smith. I'm a junior and a student of the green room.
I'm Elizabeth, and I'm also a junior and a student of the green room. We are excited that you could all be here this evening. It's been so amazing to have this class every Monday night. Through the green room, we've had the privilege of listening to and discussing so many different people.
Last week, we were extremely moved by Khizr Khan in his story. His wisdom and humility was inspiring, and we are so thankful to be able to share that experience with our students and the Iowa City community. Before the show, we involved the community even more by passing out our community homework questions.
The question was, if I was free from blank, I would be free to blank. We received so many amazing responses back, and we'd love to share one of our own responses, as well as a few of our favorites from the community. So the first one was actually mine, and I said, if I could be free from my fears and insecurities, I could be more open and take more chances.
And two of my favorites from the community were, if I could be freed from fear, I would be free to create. And if I could be freed from responsibilities, I would be free to embrace my passion for changing the world.
As you know, for the past few weeks, we've been selling stickers for the green room. They're $3 each, and you can pay with cash or card. And just as a reminder, this is the very last night they're available, so if you're interested, make sure you stop by the table on your way out tonight. And along with the stickers, there's also going to be an info table and pamphlets regarding events that are coming up here tonight, or at the Englert.
And you've already heard about witching hour this evening. Just a reminder, it's next Friday and Saturday, October 20th and 21st. So if you're interested in either of those things, definitely check out those tables on your way out.
Also, we have social media, so if you haven't added us yet on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, it's at the Green Room Iowa. And if you have any posts about it, about your Green Room experience, tag it with the hashtag #OpenTheGreenRoom. And our community question tonight is, what story would you be able to tell if the world would embrace it?
All right, and lastly, we want to thank each of you for being here and anybody who's come to any of the other Green Room classes. It was truly a pleasure to get to experience the Green Room with so many different people from our class and from the community every week. I've never had such a personal and involving class environment, so I'm really glad that we were all lucky enough to be able to participate and to be inspired every night here in the Green Room.
All right, now for thank yous. First, we want to give the biggest thank you to Dave Gold for creating this incredible experience. Secondly, we want to thank Jordan, Alonda, Dan, the Englert, and many others, as well as all of our amazing TAs. Without you guys, none of this would have been possible, so please give them a hand. And before we go, just a reminder, you can all continue the conversation tonight at Merge, and that will be right after the show, and Peter will also be there to help keep the story going.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good evening. My name is Jamie Porter, and I'm a student of the Green Room class.
Hi, I'm Minze San, also a student of the Green Room class.
Tonight, for the opening act, we are honored to have Andrea Wilson join us from the Iowa Writers House. In 2014, Andrea Wilson, an Iowa native, moved back to Iowa City to passionately pursue writing. However, Wilson, like many others, felt disconnected from the very literary community that brought her home. So she founded the Iowa Writers House. The Iowa Writers House is a nonprofit organization whose mission is to centralize access to Iowa's literary resources in a single organization that will provide programming, workshops, and a welcoming community for all. Today, the organization reaches over 3,000 writers, offers workshops and programs in both Iowa City and Des Moines, and has a greater strategic relationships connecting the Iowa with festivals in Puerto Rico, Cuba, and other cities of literature across the globe.
We are thankful for all that Andrea has done for the city and its writing community, and we are excited to see what is next. Please join us in welcoming the founder and the executive director of the Iowa Writers House, Andrea Wilson.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. I'm so pleased to be here. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. Thank you to the students for this amazing class. The Green Room has been an incredible experience, and I am honored to be the last organization of the community sharing a little bit before tonight's main event. There's a lot of stories I could tell you that are the story of the Writers' House, but the story I'm going to tell you tonight is my story. How many of you know what you want to be when you grow up? I'm glad to see that. The truth is, when I was a little girl, what I wanted to be when I grew up was an artist. I loved to paint, I loved to draw, I loved to write. But at some point, that child realized that the world needed something more from her. It expected her to be responsible, it expected her to make money, it expected her to take care of herself and have answers. There was a lot of pressure. I knew that I needed to decide something to do that was going to make an impact, that was going to make my parents proud, and I wanted to be successful. I grew up here in Iowa. I went to college in Iowa. I got my degree in Iowa, and I ended up working in advertising. New York, Toronto, Kansas City. About 8 years in, I was at the office one day working late at night, and The woman who was the manager of our entire team called her nanny for the third time that week to tell her that she wasn't going to be home that night to put the kids to bed. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm not sure I want this. I'm not sure this is my story. And I was terrified. I just invested 28 years of my life in becoming that thing that I was. I was a director. I was managing a $3 million advertising account across the country of Canada. It did not seem like the kind of thing I could just quit and step out of. But I did. In 2010, I walked away from my job, my career, my apartment. I even gave away my cat. And I asked myself what the one thing I wanted to do more than anything else in the world, what was it? And I knew in my heart what it was. It was the thing I'd wanted to do since I was a little girl, to be an artist, to be a writer. And the second thing I knew is that if I was going to do those things, I was going to do them with purpose. Because I wanted my life to have meaning. I wanted to understand that what I was doing every day, what I was getting up and giving my time towards, was going to make this world a better place, even if it only changed one person. I wanted to contribute. I'd always done things with the idea that if you're going to do them well, the best thing you can do is surround yourself with the best people. And so I looked to find out where in the best place in the world was to be a writer. And I remember thinking, when I Googled best place to be a writer, the irony of discovering that the very best place to be a writer in the entire world was the very city I was born. And so, with a little hesitation and a lot of fear, I packed up everything I owned and flew back here and bought a house. A house on the corner of Davenport and Gilbert Street, 2 blocks from the houses my parents lived in when they went to the University of Iowa College. And I came back to write, and so I started asking all the people in the community that I could find, if you're going to be a writer here, how can you get involved? What can you be part of? What groups can you join? Where's the community organizing center? I want to be part of this place. And everyone said the same thing to me. Go to the bookstore. Now, I know that if this is a UNESCO City of Literature, there have got to be other people like me that are coming to this place because they believe it's going to help them achieve their dream. They believe it's going to help them become what they were meant to be. And so I decided to take on a little project. I decided to interview 100 people who were working in this area in literature and writing. I called it my 100 Coffees Project. I talked to John Kenyon at the City of Literature. I talked to Jan at Prairie Lights. I talked to people in the university. I talked to writers in the programs, in the nonfiction program, in poetry, in fiction. I found writers who were writing in their basements and asked them, am I the only one that is crazy here? Or is it possible that we're missing something in this community? One of the people that I had coffee with was Dave Gould. And by and large, the unanimous response from everyone during those coffees was, yeah, Andrea, it does seem like maybe we're missing something here. It does seem like maybe if we're the destination for writers, globally recognized by the cultural arm of the UNESCO body, that there might be something else here for people to participate in. And that's really the encouragement that I needed. I thought, maybe this is my purpose. Maybe this is the thing I can do with my life. And so with a bit of trepidation, I designed a little website and I put out an invitation for a workshop. Go back a few. Keep going back. There you go. That's our very first workshop. There were 8 people. They were the most special 8 people to me. But they put their faith in me and said, we believe in what you're doing and we're going to come. And then there was another workshop. And then there were a few more, and people kept coming. And they kept reassuring me that my dream wasn't something I had alone, that other people shared that dream. The community started to come out to support, to cheer me on. Even those people that weren't writers came to some of our events, our historical tour, and said, "We like what you're doing." In that house, in a circle of 12 chairs, people shared parts of themselves that were the things I was looking for. They shared their vulnerabilities. They shared their truths. They shared their fears. Yes, it was about writing, but what is writing if not the language that all of us use as human beings? Every single one of you writes every day. Emails, notes, those social media posts where you're outpouring your feelings and telling what it is that you think about life. Writing is the most powerful tool we have as human beings. Words can change the world. And what I started to see more and more as we picked up and began to do more things together is that the power of Iowa and writing and this place was here, and that we had tapped into something beautiful. After Ferguson, we did a spoken word event where people came out and shared the things that they felt were inside of them that they were afraid of. We did programs for young women that helped them consider what life could be like if they didn't have boundaries, if they could be anything. And they wrote poetry, and they wrote fiction, and they wrote stories, and then we published that book for them so that they could believe in themselves. We had junior high kids. Pretty soon I started to get calls from local high schools that said, "Hey, could we stop by the writer's house? We know we're just a high school class, but we were wondering if we could come see the place." And then this year, in our third year, I started to get calls from classes at the university. And they said, "Hey, we're in the English department. We're a rhetoric class. We'd really like to come visit and find out what's happening in this space." Mission Creek was at the house. We created a podcast. People like Roxanne Gay accepted our offer to be interviewed. Ultimately, what I can tell you is I would not be here today if it wasn't for this community, the support of this community, and everything all of you have put behind me. It has been a true honor and a privilege to figure out what I want to be when I grow up here with you. And I can't wait to see what we continue to do together. The Green Room has been, for me, an inspiration in that it's a conversation. And it's a place where we're honest with each other, and it's a place where we talk about the difficult things. And you have all inspired me to continue to take that into what we're doing. This fall, we'll be launching a workshop series called The Power of Story. 3 more. Keep going. And I'd love to invite you all to attend. It's going to be an exploration of the human experience, tapping into soulful insights, and sharing time and community space together to answer the hard questions. So that's it. Your life is your story. You're the hero. Write the one you want to read. Thank you.
All right, so up next, I have the privilege of introducing Eric Small, a fellow student of the Green Room, with a knack for storytelling and writing, who has something very personal to share with us.
Good evening. I'd just like to start. So I want to take you back to when I was in 5th grade. And I decided to join band. And I wasn't quite sure what instrument I was going to pick. It was kind of fun, whether I play the tuba or the flute. And so I went to consult with my mentor, my advisor, my grandfather. And he told me to play the clarinet because he had played it. back in the day. It just so happens that he was part of a tradition at my high school. I'm originally from Joliet, Illinois, that won consecutive national band championships in the 1920s and 30s. They were touted as the best band in the land by John Philip Sousa, and my grandfather was part of this tradition, so I wanted to further this. I wanted to honor him by doing this. So I learned to play the clarinet, and I played for my grandfather. I played Glenn Miller and big band jazz and marching fight songs, because that's what he wanted to hear. My grandparents lived in town, and I visited them 2 or 3 or 4 times a week, just to spend time with them. And I spent time with them through playing the clarinet or watching TV or simply eating dinner. In fact, I even snuck ice cream bars and butterscotches and cookies to my grandfather when he wasn't looking. He was a diabetic. Probably didn't help. My grandfather seemed immune to death. He was like a cat who had 9 lives. Medically, he was a type 2 diabetic. By 50, he picked up smoking, so he's dependent on oxygen. He developed pancreatic cancer, had a quadruple bypass surgery, survived a heart attack, developed ulcers and gangrene on his feet, and I witnessed most of this, seeing him degrade. But also, he was a World War II Marine, and he survived Iwo Jima, Battle of Coral Sea, Midway Island. He was a radar operator, so he was in planes and when they were fighting the Japanese in the Pacific. And one time he was scheduled to fly a plane, and they had a certain quota of flights per week, and my grandfather had already completed them all that week. So another gentleman, another Marine, volunteered to take this plane. That plane never came back. So he was a tough cookie, medically and just being a Marine. But in late September 2013, I was over at my grandparents' house with my mom and brother and grandma, and while he was walking to the bathroom, he fell. He happened to break his knee, and so he was carted over to the hospital in the ambulance. I figured, here we go again, this mentality. He had survived everything before. I wasn't sleeping, though. I was really concerned because he was my best friend, right? And he received surgery at 90 years of age, and his knee became infected. And when I wasn't in school, I would visit him, but I didn't like seeing him in the hospital. So I usually called him on the phone and spoke to him. I remember delivering Thanksgiving meals to him during Thanksgiving time, and I had known that his kidneys were failing and shutting down. He was receiving dialysis treatments, but I was holding on to hope. Then came December 13th, 2013. For as long as I live, it will be a day that lives in infamy. I went to school just like any other day, slightly preoccupied with finals, as it was December. I was in second hour physics when I got called down to the security entrance of my high school, where I saw my parents, unexpectedly. They said it was time for me to say goodbye to my grandfather. Right then and there, I lost my composure a bit, and because it was unexpected, I was holding on to hope, right? And so I'm thinking, I'm having thoughts of denial, and that my grandfather, the tough Marine, he was bulletproof, per se. And so the hospital was right next to the school, my high school, conveniently. So we shot on right over there, and there's this woman there. I didn't know her. She says, "Hi, I'm Catherine." She happened to be an Episcopal church minister, and they had invited her to come to say last rites, etc. She gave me a hug, and a moment passes, and the room grows quiet. My whole family's there. She says, "I hear you were really close to your grandfather." And I nod, my roller coaster of emotions seemingly unabating. She says, "Well, I have one question for you. What's stronger, your head or your heart?" I don't hesitate to answer. "My heart," I say. And she says, "Okay, well, let's go to see your grandfather." So I walk into this room, seemingly alien and desolate and deprived of color, seemingly devoid of life. And I see my grandfather there, breathing. But that's all, just breathing. I discover that he's on life support, eyes shut, surrounded by tubes, but the doctors told me that he could hear. Never had I been exposed to this before, and never do I hope to be exposed to this again. And I told him 3 things. I told him that I loved him. I thanked him for being the best grandfather that anyone could ever have. And I told him that for the rest of my life, I'd make him proud. We prayed as a family and left for what I thought would be the last time I would see my grandfather. 2 nights later, I went to bed just like any day, right? Still in mourning, certainly. And I had a dream. Never had I, nor have I since, experienced such a vivid and crystal clear presence in a dream. It was my grandfather, sitting in his teal electric chair in what looked like a waiting room, wearing his white golf polo and navy blue cardigan. He was in the center of the room, and there were numerous older individuals aligning the white walls of this room, this box. Then he spoke. He said, "Hi, Eric. I'm okay." Fast forward to today. I'm a student here at the University of Iowa, still playing my clarinet. I initially, that was kind of my mode of grieving, and I'm propelled to continually play in honor of him whenever I pick up my horn, which just happens to be almost every day of the week, since I'm in the Hawkeye Marching Band. And so I guess the takeaway from this is express love, gratitude, and live for a purpose. And that's what I did when I said goodbye to my grandfather. Thank you.
All right, can we get one more round of applause for Eric for being so brave and sharing his story?
Side note.
All right, so if you're here as part of the fraternity and sorority life educational, please meet with Noel Mills at the Merge after the show this evening.
Alrighty.
And then just.
So Aaron Morgenstern, the author of Night Circus, says, "You may tell a tale that takes up residence in someone's soul, becomes their blood and life and purpose. That tale will move them and drive them, and who knows what they might do because of it, because of your words. That is your role, your gift."
Storytelling is an art form, as Eric has demonstrated and Peter will show us in a moment. It's a medium intertwined with the soul. Stories are legacies that have the power to last generations on and remind us of the interconnectedness of the human experience. We all have something to share.
Peter Aguero is a professional storyteller. As one of the top storytellers in the country, He is a Moth Grand Slam champion, a regular host of Moth shows, and an instructor for the Moth Shop community program. I'm super excited for this, so please join us in welcoming Peter Aguero.
I'm sitting in the front seat, and the upholstery is scratchy on the back of my legs. I'm 5 years old. I'm a little boy. I was once a little boy. I can barely see over the hood, the dashboard of the car. What I can see is the hood, and it's blue and it's metal, and it reaches off to the horizon. It's raining, and the rain makes the sound of 1,000,000 drums on the roof of the car. And whenever we slow down, the drums get loud, and when we speed up, the drums get quiet again. I'm in the car with my dad. We're listening to Creedence. Whenever a father and a son are in the car together, Creedence is playing somewhere. It's one of the natural laws of the universe. And we're on our way to the work pants store because my dad just got some work and he needed some pants. So that's where we were headed to. And we're stopped at a red light, and he glances over and then looks over at me and says, why don't you hop in the back seat? So I did, and I hop in the back seat. I'm sitting on the hump. And when the light turns green, he turns the wheel to the side of the road and pulls over, and he reaches over and lifts up that little silver button that unlocks the door. And just then a figure approaches the side of the car, and he opens the door, and he gets in. And he's wearing a green jacket just like my dad has in the closet at home that I'm not allowed to touch. And his hair is matted, and his beard is crazy, and he sits down and he shoves this overstuffed army duffel bag, this big green duffel bag, between his knees. He smells like wet bread. And my stomach's starting to tremble a little bit because I don't know who this is. But I'm with my dad. And he's 8 feet tall, 800 pounds, biggest man in the world. And when I'm with my dad, everything's going to be okay. So my dad goes over to the guy, where you going, pal? The guy mutters something incomprehensible and looks straight ahead. My dad drops a little stick that makes the car go and turns the wheel back into traffic. And we go down the road, and the drums get quiet again. My dad asks the guy, he says, hey, pal, do you want me to take you over to the VA office? It's not that far from here. And the guy says nothing. He looks straight ahead, and he says, look, I know a lot of times the guys at the VA, they're not real easy to get along with, but I've been going for a while. They seem to get it. It's really not far out of the way. It's not a problem. The guy says nothing, looks straight ahead. Now, my stomach's starting to get a little shaky because I'm only a little boy, and even I know conversations aren't supposed to go this way. So he says again, listen, pal, I can take you over there. It's really not a problem. They can help you find a place to stay. They're good guys. It's going to be okay. And the guy says nothing, looks straight ahead. My dad says, look, pal, the weather's terrible out here. You got a place to stay? You got rain gear? What do you got in the bag? The guy goes, none of your fucking business. He screams. And my dad turns to the guy and says, watch it, pal, I got my kid in the car. And now my stomach's going crazy because he just said a word you're not allowed to use. So my dad says, look, I'm going to ask you one more time, buddy. I'm trying to help you out. What do you got in the bag? None of your fucking business, the guy screams again. My dad's bottom jaw starts to jut out. When you can see my dad's bottom teeth, things are going to get loud. Everybody knows that. He goes, look, buddy, I'm going to ask you one more time, or I'm going to kick your ass out of the car. What's in the bag? None of your fucking business, he screams again. My dad says, okay, and he turns the wheel of the car to the side of the road, starts shoving the guy. None of your fucking business. He's screaming and screaming. My dad gets out of the car, and the guy's face turns to me, and his eyes are black as oblivion, and his teeth aren't that far behind, and he's screaming in my face. None of your fucking business. I feel the spit hit my face. I know he's going to eat me. I'm going to be in his belly. He's going to poop me out later. I'll be in a toilet. I don't want to be in a belly or a toilet. I'm terrified. None of your fucking. He's screaming. Then all of a sudden, the door rips open. My dad's big hands grab the guy by the shoulder, throws him on the side of the road. He kicks him, slams the door, comes around, gets in the car, drops the stick. We go back on the road. He goes, are you okay? I say, yeah. He says, don't tell your mother. So we make our way down the road, and we get to the work pants store, and we pull into a spot in the parking lot. My dad gets out, and it's a 2-door Impala, and he hits that little silver button that makes a seat go forward. And I launch myself out and wrap my arms around his neck, and I feel his big hands pat me on the back. He's saying, it's okay, pal, it's okay, I'm sorry. That was somebody I thought I knew. I'm sorry, that'll never happen again. I wanted to tell him I was scared. I wanted to tell him that he shouldn't have left me. I wanted to tell him that he shouldn't have picked up somebody. I wanted to tell him all these things, but I was a little boy, and I was too busy crying, and I didn't have the words, so I just finished crying. And when I was done, he put me down, and he held my hand, and we walked through the parking lot to the store in the dying drizzle. There's 3 kinds of jobs. There's a blue pants job, a green pants job, and a gray pants job. This new job happened to be a blue pants job, so we go over to the blue pants rack, and he picks out 3 pairs of these blue pants, and I'm touching the fabric These are pants you could put on and jump off a bridge and you'd be okay. These are like magic pants. These are amazing pants. So he picks up 3 of the pairs of pants and we go up to the front and he pays for the pants and we walk outside, and by that time the rain had stopped and the air smells fresh and everything looks yellow. And I'm jumping over puddles and running through puddles and going around puddles because I'm a little boy and that's my job. But then we get to the car and I'm going to open up that big heavy Impala door too because that's also my job. I'm also a big boy. So I open up that big heavy door and I go to get in, and that's when I see that the duffel bag is still in the car. That didn't happen. My father was born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. His father was an abusive alcoholic and threw him down the stairs when he was a little boy and broke both of his arms. And my grandmother was able to finally leave that man. She didn't have enough money to take all 5 kids from Philadelphia down to Georgia, where her family was from. So she left my dad and his older brother in an orphanage for a couple of weeks until they could get the money together. My dad was very smart. He skipped a couple grades when he was young, but then he dropped out of high school and he enlisted in the Army just in time for Vietnam. There are a lot of men that didn't have a good time in Vietnam. My dad was one of them. There are a lot of men that didn't have a good time when they came back from Vietnam. My dad was one of those too. Soon after he got back, he met my mother in a bar. Soon after that, they started dating. Soon after that, they got married. Soon after that, they had me. A little bit later, they had my sister. Now, except for me being born, my sister being born, all the things that I just told you right now, I had to figure out through context clues and asking relatives when they had maybe too many beers or eavesdropping, you know. My dad always played his cards really close to the vest. I don't know anything about my father. He's never told me anything about his life. He's a complete mystery to me. But when I was 9 years old, my dad had just gotten a new job. He was a tool and die maker. It was a good blue-collar job, but he was always out of work. He would be at work for a while, and then one day he'd pick my sister and I up from school. We'd be like, "Why aren't you at work?" And he'd say, "I punched my boss." And then he'd be home for a while. And then he'd get a new job, and he had to get new pants, and that was the cycle that was happening. So he'd just gotten this new job. And, you know, I remember my father when I was growing up, when he wasn't being loud, I remember him being alone. I remember my dad in his room, in the dark, in the bed, sitting on the edge of the bed, rocking back and forth alone. I don't remember him being with anyone else. I only remember him being alone. On Saturday afternoons, he would take a nap on the couch, and you weren't allowed to poke the bear. But on this day, he just gotten a new job, and he asked me to come with him to the work pants store. So I get in the car, and we're driving on our way over there, and it's raining in his Impala. And he says, as we're stopped at a red light, he says, "See that spot right over there?" And I say, "Yeah." He says, "Just the other day, I picked up a hitchhiker right over there." And he tells me the story of this hitchhiker and the duffel bag. And he's telling me the story, and I'm sitting there, and it's blowing my mind. My dad had never told me a story before, and I'm wrapped and mesmerized with attention, you know. It's amazing. And he's telling me, so I asked the guy, "What's in the bag?" He goes, "None of your goddamn business." And then, "What's in the bag?" "None of your goddamn business." I kick him out of the car, and I drive down the road, and I look down, and I see that the bag is still in the car, and then he turns forward, and he keeps driving. And I pick my little jaw up off my chest, and I say, but Dad, what was in the bag?" And he goes, "None of your goddamn business," because it was a bullshit joke. The whole thing was just it's not even a funny joke. It's not even a good joke for the people that hear it. It's only a good joke for the kind of asshole that would tell that kind of joke. And he goes, "Oh, okay, listen, don't tell your mother." But the first thing I did when I got to school on that Monday at St. Casimir School in Riverside, New Jersey, is I got all the boys in my class, and before class, I got them over on the side of the playground and said, "Hey guys, yesterday me and my dad picked up a hitchhiker." And I told him this whole story. And I changed it from goddamn to fuck, because you can't say goddamn in the parking lot of St. Casimir School. Those are the rules. So I'm telling them that story, and they're just as mesmerized as I was the day before. And then I get to toward the end, and I say, and then we drive down the road, and I look down, and the bag is still in the car, and I stop, and my buddy Brad goes, "But Pete, what was in the bag?" And I go, "None of your fucking business." And all their faces fell in betrayal, just like you guys right now. But I kept telling that story. I told it through grade school, into high school, into college, in my 20s and my 30s. Shit, man, I just told it 5 minutes ago. I've been telling this story over and over. And as the years went on, I made myself younger. I remembered all the details of that Impala, how you could see the street moving beneath us and the scratchy upholstery. And as time has gone on, this story has become true to me. Like, I don't know if it's the nature of memory or what, but if you believe something long enough, if you believe something to be true in a way inside your head where things are cloudy, it can become true. I have a very distinct memory of being in a car with my dad with his hitchhiker. But the story is a lie. But in this story, my dad's my protector, ultimately. What does that mean? It's been about 30 years. I still don't know what's in the bag. A couple weeks after he had gotten his job, it's a Saturday afternoon. It's early afternoon, so toward the morning, late morning. I'm in the bathtub because it's been a stressful week. I need a little me time, you know. It was the day of my sister's first Holy Communion, and instead of having the party in our backyard like we did for my first Holy Communion, my parents got suckered into renting the parish hall. And when you rent the parish hall, there's all this extra expense. You got to rent tables and chairs and a DJ and get catering and all this other stuff. My parents weren't good at a lot of things, but they were really good about fighting about money. So that's what they've been doing over the last couple of weeks. And like, I knew today it was going to be a long day with lots of family, so I just wanted to have some stress, man. I just wanted to get in the tub. When I was a little kid, my favorite thing to do was to get in the tub and let the water come up right above my ears so it would shut off all the sound in the world. And it was the only quiet that I ever experienced. And it was just beautiful. I loved to do that. And my dad was of the opinion that at 9 years old, I was too old to take baths. He thought I should take showers. But the shower was so violent. The water shoots at your face. I was a delicate kid, okay? So here I am in the tub, just trying to, right? And then the water's filling up, and I hear this voice from my parents' bedroom. We don't have time for this, shut that off. So I shut the water off real quick because he's so loud. And the water's not even covering my hips. And within 5 minutes, I'm in a lukewarm puddle of my own butt water. And I can't really, I'm trying to wash myself. And all of a sudden, my dad busts in the bathroom completely naked, sits down on the toilet, 18 inches from my face. I was having explosive diarrhea. 18 inches from my face. I want you to picture your father having explosive diarrhea, 18 inches from your face. I'm sorry to do that to you, but it happened to me. I need us to be all on the same page. So he's there, he's just exploding like the Death Star. He reaches behind him, he grabs a pack of cigarettes from the toilet, he starts smoking. This is the opposite of aromatherapy. I'm having zero stress relief. So after a minute, I give up the ghost, and I stand up, and I squeeze past him, and I dry off, and I go in my room, and I put on my suit, and I go downstairs. My mom puts me and my sister in the car, and she says, kids, Dad's going to meet us at the party. He's not feeling very well. And I'm thinking, no shit. So we get over to the church, and my sister has her first Holy Communion, and she does the thing, and she looks like a tiny little white wedding cake. And I finally want to I'm glad to be able to have that conversation with my sister about how Jesus actually tastes a lot like cardboard. And when the Mass is over, we go over to the parish hall, and all my family from Philadelphia is over there, my aunts and uncles and cousins and our neighbors, and everybody's over there. DJ's playing music, and there's catering food, like Polish food and roast beef, and there's a big wash tub full of cans of store brand soda. And I'm talking to my grandmother, and I'm her favorite, and we're not allowed to tell anybody, but everybody knows. And I'm telling her all about school, and she's telling me how great I am. And my dad walks in, and he's ashen-faced, and he sits down at a table in the back of the parish hall, and my Uncle Phil brings him over a ginger ale, and he pops the top, and he takes a sip, and he puts his head down. Just then, the DJ announces there's going to be a twist contest, and the grand prize is going to be a $75 gift certificate for the DJ. So I and a bunch of other kids enter the contest, along with a few adults that don't realize that this is a thing for children. And the way it works is he starts playing the twist, and everybody starts doing the twist, and the DJ goes around and starts tapping people out, and whoever's left wins the $75 gift certificate. So I'm tearing it up. I'm going up on one leg and the other leg. I'm doing spins, and like people are getting tapped out, and I'm sweating. And it's amazing. And finally it gets down to me and my cousin Karen, and we're mano a mano. I really want to win this gift certificate. A couple weeks before, I'm laying on the floor in my living room playing Nintendo. I'm playing Legend of Zelda. I'm in a dungeon. I'm trying to find this shield. There's legend about it. You can figure it out later. And as I'm playing, my dad comes into the room yelling. And he's pissed off because he thinks, he's of the opinion that as I was playing, apparently, I was playing up the carpet, and I put the juice away, and I turned off the Nintendo, and over the next couple of weeks, my dad just didn't talk to me. So I want to win this gift certificate. I'm looking at Karen right in the eyes, and I'm up on one leg again. And she's from Philadelphia. She's not going to use this, a Jersey DJ. She's not going to use this guy. And I'm starting to the spin again, and I'm thinking of dropping down in one of those James Brown splits. But these pants are like 2 years old, and they're going to go right up the crotch if I do that. I'm trying to do the math. $75 or pants? I'm 9. I don't know how much pants cost. So, like, I'm trying to figure this out. Just then, Karen gets tagged out. I win, raise my arms in triumph. They play the Rocky music. They give me this envelope. I walk past my cheering, laughing, clapping family to the back of the parish hall, and I go to the back to where my dad's sitting, and I take that envelope, and I put it down on the table, and I slide it across. And he raises his head, and he says, I saw you dancing out there like a little pussy. It's embarrassing. We're not going to use that thing. It's embarrassing. And he puts his head down. And I pick up the envelope. And I walk past my family, and I go outside, and I tear it up, and I throw it in a trash barrel. And I sit down on the steps of the parish hall in the hot sun, and I wait for the party to be over. Now, when I was 13 years old, Nellie's Pond froze for the first time since my mom was a kid. And it's another Saturday afternoon, and all I want to do is get out of my house and ride my bike on the ice at Nellie's Pond. It's a typical Saturday afternoon, and I walk down in the living room, and there's my family. My dad's laying on his side, chain-smoking Marlboro Reds, and he's watching them once the sun went down. So I go out to the garage, and I get my bike, and I ride the 10 minutes over to Nellie's Pond. I push my bike through a little sliver of woods, and I go out to the surface of the ice. Nellie's Pond was about the size of 2 football fields. I grew up in a town called Delanco, New Jersey. At the time, it was about 2,500 people. It was all farms. It wasn't much different than some of the spots around here. It just happened to be in New Jersey. And so it was a good place to grow up. It was, I'm pretty fortunate. There was a league, street hockey league in town, but I didn't play hockey when I was a kid. There was a bunch of kids that had swept off the snow off the surface of the ice, and they were playing ice hockey. But I could still ride my bike around the perimeter of the game, so that's what I was doing. I'm listening to the crunch of my big fat bicycle tires on that little scrim of snow that forms right over the surface of the ice, and I get over to the side of the game, and I'm looking up at the sky through the denuded branches of the trees, and it looks like wooden stained glass, and it's beautiful. Just then my hat's pulled off my head, and it's thrown up in those branches. It's my favorite hat. It's a green and gray Philadelphia Eagles knit hat with a pom-pom on top, and it's very warm, and I hear laughter, and I turn around, and there's Eric. Eric's one of those kids with a big pumpkin head, and his hair is way too blonde. He's a perfect henchman, you know. And I turn around, there's his boss, Mike Dawes. Now, Mike Dawes has his knees clamped on my front bicycle tire. He's got his hands clamped over my hands on the hand grips, and he's screaming in my face, "Nice hat, pussy, I'll kick your ass. What are you going to do?" The hockey game stops. He's screaming. Now, at 13 years old, I hadn't quite grown into my size yet. Mike was 2 years older than me. He was a very stocky kid, had a flat-top haircut and these tiny little eyes and braces. He looked like a pig fucked a lawnmower, and he's just screaming in my face, "I'll kick your ass. What are you going to do?" And everyone's watching. I don't want to fight him. He's trying to get me to fight. I don't know why he singled me out. I have no idea. All I wanted to do today was get out of my house. So I just take it, and I just listen to it. And after a while, I guess he got what he wanted, or he didn't get what he wanted. Who knows what evil lurks in the heart of Mike Dawes? I have no idea. And he kicks my tire one more time, and they walk away, and the hockey game starts again. And I'm looking at my hat, and I can't get it, so I leave it for dead. And I push my bike through a little sliver of woods, and I ride the 10 minutes home. And I put my bike in the garage, and I walk past my family, and I go upstairs in my room, and I turn off the light, and I lay on my bed, and I put a pillow over my face because I don't want to talk to anybody. After a couple minutes, I hear footsteps coming up the stairs, and then my door opens, and then I feel my dad's big body on the foot of my bed. And he says, "What's the matter, pal?" And from under the pillow, I say, "Nothing." He lifts up the pillow. "What's the matter?" And I put the pillow back. "Nothing." He throws the pillow across the room. He goes, "What's the matter?" I say, "Mike Dawes." He goes, "That kid's a prick." I was like, "I know." And I told him what happened. So he listens to me, and he nods his head, and he goes, "Okay, come with me." And I follow him downstairs where we have the phone. It's a rotary phone. He looks up D for Dawes in the phone book. It's a small town. There's only one of them. He dials 6 of the numbers. And I'm figuring he's going to call this kid, yell at the kid's dad, do dad stuff. Dials 6th number, 7th number. He holds his finger on the 7th number, and he says, "You're going to call him and tell him you're going to fight him tomorrow at 3 o'clock. And he lets go of the number, hands me the phone. So now I got this phone ringing in my ear, and I want to run away, but my dad's 8 feet tall, 100 pounds. I can't get around him. Do the math. So this woman answers the phone, and I say, hi, can I talk to Mike? She says, who's this? Tell him it's Pete. She walks away. He comes to the phone. What do you want, pussy? I say, hi, Mike. I want to fight you tomorrow at Nellie's Pond at 3 o'clock. He says, okay, I'll kick your ass tomorrow. I say, sure, thanks, Mike. And I hang up the phone. And my dad nods his head again, and he says, okay, come with me. And I follow him outside, and we go out to the garage, and that's what my dad says to show me how to fight. He says, okay, you're right-handed, so you're going to stand like this. You're going to use your jab, and that'll give you space, and you're going to throw your strong right when you can. He holds up his hands, and it's that sound in that cold garage of like meat hitting meat and meat hitting meat, and that's what we're doing. Now, when I was a kid, my dad never hit me. Never, not once. Never, not one time. And that's a low bar to set for a parent, but he got over that one. But all the games when we played when I was a kid were like thumb wrestling and arm wrestling and leg wrestling and wrestling. And they always ended up with me in a submissive position underneath of my father, with him saying, we got to toughen you up, son. We got to toughen you up. I don't think my dad really understood the kind of son that he had. The kind of son that he had, like to make stuff out of construction paper and read a book down by the river and play music in his room and dance, take baths. He didn't understand that kid. But I feel like by him showing me how to fight, he was maybe trying to turn me into the kind of kid that he did understand. So I went along with it, and we're out there just punching and punching. And he shows me the one move he learned on the streets in Philadelphia when he was growing up. It's easy. Grab, clench, twist. Really, it's just a simple move. So we're out punching, and the sweat and the steam is rising off us in that cold garage until eventually he pats me on the back. He says, you're going to do fine, son. You're going to do fine. And we go inside. My mom makes dinner. And during dinner, my dad says something which reminds my sister of something. She says something reminds my mom of something. My dad explodes. My mom and sister leave the table. I do the dishes. Pretty standard, you know. That night, I have a hard time getting to sleep because the next day I have a scheduled fight like I'm fucking George Foreman, and I can't wrap my head around that fact. So after I finally do get some sleep, I wake up and it's time to go to church. So we go over to church and we sit through Mass, and then afterward I go light a candle. Not one of those little quarter candles, but like the $1 candle, because I need a little extra help. And I kneel down and I say an Our Father and a Hail Mary, and then just like a special remix from me to Jesus. Like, come on, buddy, you got to help me in your name. What could Jesus, man? So afterwards, we go back home. My mom makes pancakes, and they're delicious. And then it gets to be about 2:30. It's time to get ready. So I walk through the living room, and there's my family. My dad's laying on the side, chain smoking Marlboro Reds, watching NFL football. My mom is combing out my sister's hair. It's a rat's nest. I hate you. I go over to the closet, and I get my lighter winter jacket from More Range of Motion. I get my second favorite hat. It's just red. And I go out to the garage, and I get my bike, and I ride the 10 minutes over to Nellie's Pond. I push my bike through the little sliver of woods, and I ride out to the center of the ice. There's a street hockey league game today, so I have the ice all to myself. And I ride directly out to the middle, and I'm standing there. And it's 3 o'clock, and I'm looking up at the sky. It's one of those slate gray winter skies that looks like it's about 3 feet above your head. It's one of those slate gray winter skies that looks like you could just reach up and grab a piece and pull it off like cotton candy and put it in your pocket. It's one of those slate gray winter skies that's so quiet that it's roaring in its silence. So at 3 o'clock, there I am. Just me and the silent roaring sky. I see a rustle in the bushes across the way, so I get ready, but it must be a dog or a squirrel or something. At 3:05, I put my bike down. I start bouncing on the balls of my feet to stay warm. At 3:10, I'm throwing punches that keep limber. 3:15, 3:20, 3:25. At 3:30, I go over and I get a branch from a deadfall, and I start throwing it up in my hat. And on the fourth try, I knock my Eagles hat off, and I put the red one in my pocket and put the Eagles hat on. 3:35, 3:40, 3:45. At 3:50, I get my bike and I push it through the little sliver of woods, and I take the long way home down by the river, and I let that unspent adrenaline, that curdling poison, let it go. It's got to get out of my body. I'm just trying to get rid of it. It feels so like it just feels broken inside. And I finally get home, and I go into the garage, and I leave my bike in there, and I go into the house. I walk past my family, and I go upstairs in my room, and I turn off the light, and I lay on the bed, and I put a pillow over my face because I don't want to talk to anybody. And when you grow up in chaos, you look for things that you can count on, like anything that you can count on, you know. For me, one of the things that I knew I could count on was Christmas Eve midnight mass at St. Casimir's Church in Riverside, New Jersey. It was beautiful. St. Casimir's was an octagonal church built in the 70s. There was a lot of exposed light wood, and the carpet was like orange and brown. There were 2 big abstract stained glass windows flanking the altar. On Christmas, there would be a big Christmas tree on the side and a large nativity scene, and the 3 wise men would be across the church because they weren't supposed to get there yet. And at midnight mass, all the lights would be down low, and the place would be packed, and there'd be the choir in the corner, and they're singing all the quiet Christmas carols, "Oh, Holy Night, Silent Night." And when the priest would get to the end of the aisle about to start mass, there'd be this moment. There'd be this intake of breath. There'd be this pause. There'd be this thing where everybody who was sitting in that room together would take in a breath, and you would think about where you had been since you've been there and where you're going to be until you're there again. It was a perfect moment, and I looked forward to it every year because it was something I could count on. Now, the year that I turned 15, in that August, on a very hot August day, my mom tells me and my sister to get in the car because we're going to go out to dinner. I'm immediately suspicious because we haven't gone out to dinner in months. My parents had gotten separated and back together 4 or 5 times when I was growing up, like for a couple of weeks and then back together, a couple of months, back together, a couple more months, back together. And without any explanation or anything, it was just that's how things were one day and then another day. It was bonkers. This last time they had been apart for about almost a year, and my dad had his own apartment, and my mom was dating somebody, and my dad was dating somebody. I was hoping this one would take. But when you're running 2 houses, there's no extra money to do anything. So we hadn't gone out to eat in months. And then she says we're going to Pizza Hut. Now that makes me doubly suspicious because Pizza Hut is fancy. Like Pizza Hut has a salad bar, and in that salad bar they got bacon bits that are made out of real bacon, not that bullshit soy stuff, but like actual bacon. And I love the salad bar, man. Like I'm a sucker for a salad bar. So I get in the car and we drive over there. And we pull into the parking lot, and we pull into a spot, and 40 feet away, there's my dad leaning against his Buick, smoking a cigarette. And I say to my mom, what's going on? She says, no, we'll talk about it. And we get out of the car, my mom walks over, and my sister walks over, and my mom starts holding my dad's hand, and my sister starts jumping around like a little puppy dog. And I'm standing there 40 feet away, looking at this like Norman Rockwell, Salvador Dali family that I'm saddled with. And I just say, what is this? And my mom and dad look at each other, and my dad shakes his head. My mom says, it's okay, we'll talk about it inside. Now, I don't want to ruin Pizza Hut with whatever's happening here. So I say, no, what is this? And they look at each other again, and my mom nods her head. My dad says, son, your mom and I are going to give it one more try. We're going to give it one more try. We're going to sell the house. We're going to move down to Georgia. We're going to get a new place to live. It's going to be a fresh start. It's going to be a fresh start, son. It's going to be a fresh start. And I'm standing there 30 feet away, and they're looking at me with these big shit-eating grins. And I just say, this is a terrible idea. And all their faces fell because a 15-year-old kid just told them their life choice was a terrible idea. You don't listen to a 15-year-old kid ever. So we go in the Pizza Hut, and we're sitting down in this booth, and I can't believe that the 4 of us are sitting in a booth together again. I never thought that would happen again. It's blowing my mind. I thought those days were over. My mom says, you can get the salad bar. And I go, God damn it. I go over to the salad bar. I get that chip brown plastic plate, and I put on some lettuce and some tomatoes and no cucumbers because they don't taste like anything and they only take up space. And I get to the end, and I start putting on the bacon bits like I'm Richard Dreyfuss building Devil's Tower. And I'm just like pouring them on. And then at the end, I dip that ladle into that thick, sweet Pizza Hut Italian dressing, and I pour it over the top. It's so viscous, it doesn't even integrate into the salad. It just makes like a sugar shell on top of the salad. Any other day, I'd be thrilled to eat this beautiful salad, but today, in a breach of all salad bar etiquette, I leave it there on the counter, and I walk past my family, and I go outside, and I go to my mom's car. It's been sitting in the hot August sun, and I take my hand, and I put it on her metal trunk, and it starts to burn, and it starts to hurt, and I leave it there. My mom comes out, and she's behind me, and I can't even look at her. I hear her say, are you okay? And I say, I don't feel well. And she says, okay. And they get the pizzas to go. And I didn't realize my dad had most of his clothes in the back of his car, and he just moved in with us, and he moved back in. And like, it was very strange for this next couple of weeks. It's as if everybody respected each other and listened to each other. It never happened before. Everybody was on their best behavior. And in the beginning of September, I started high school. Holy Cross High School was a place I always wanted to go. They had really sharp uniforms. And I knew we were going to be moving in January, so I joined everything I could. The student council and the homecoming committee and the freshman football team. Like, I joined everything just because I knew we were going to be going. I just wanted to be a part of stuff before we left. And they were okay with that. I stayed with my buddy Jason. When they came back on Monday, they had all these pictures that they went and got developed of this house that they put a bid on that we were going to live in, and the school that I was going to go to. And they told me the football coach was real excited to get that big boy down here. I have to be honest with you, up until this point, there was no way that I believed that this was real. There was no way I trusted that it was real. I wished it wasn't real. There was no way I thought that these 4 people could pack up their shit, move their shit somewhere else, unpack their shit, and live in their shit somewhere else. I thought that was an impossibility. But now, there's like tangible evidence. There's a house and buildings and paperwork and all this stuff. So I guess this is actually happening. For the first time, I believe that this was actually happening. It's a Friday night in early December, and my sister's at a sleepover, and I'm sitting in my bedroom, and my door's closed, and I'm listening to my parents fight. And I'm laying on my bed, and I'm looking up at my ceiling for answers. I have posters of my heroes. There's Charles Barkley and a woman in a bikini, and there's no answers. They have no answers. And, you know, they're just saying all this wicked stuff to each other, the meanest shit you ever heard. They're just saying this stuff no one should say to another person, especially not people getting ready to make a fresh start. And I want to stand up, and I want to go in there, and I want to tell them, I told you so, because I told them so, right? So, you know, I get up, and I go across the hallway, and their door's open, and they're nose to nose, screaming, saying this stuff to each other. It's just like, it's awful, it's terrible. My mom sees me at the doorway, my dad follows her gaze, and he turns around, he walks toward me, and he looks through me like I'm transparent, like I don't even exist, and he slams the door so hard that a piece of the wood molding splinters off and hits me in the chest, and I back up. And I close my door and I sit on the edge of my bed and I listen to my parents fight. And it escalates and escalates and gets louder and louder. And they don't even sound like human beings anymore. They sound like 2 jungle cats trying to tear each other's throats out. And it gets louder and louder and escalates. And all of a sudden there's a thud and silence. And I stand up and I go to open my door. And I know that if I touch the doorknob, it's going to burn my hand like hot fire. But I have to do something, right? So I open the door and I go down the hallway and I go downstairs and I go out through the living room and I go outside and I go to the garage, and on the tool bench I find a pair of tin snips and I go underneath the rear tires of my dad's car and I just start cutting wires and hoses, and fluids are hitting me in the face, and I scoot over and I'm cutting wires and hoses, and fluids are hitting me in the face, and I stand up and I'm filthy. And I get up and I get on the ground and I'm under the front tires and I'm looking for things to cut when the garage door opens. And from underneath the car, I see my dad's legs silhouetted in the garage doorway. And he says, "What the fuck do you think you're doing?" And I stand up. And at 15, I still hadn't grown into my size yet, and he was still 8 feet tall and 800 pounds, but today was different. And I drop the tin snips and I step around the car and we're 10 feet away from each other. And I'm terrified, but that all of a sudden I knew what to do, and I dropped my shoulder and I ran at him and I hit him low on the knee and I heard a crack and he went down and he's on the ground, and I kicked him in the face and his nose exploded in blood and broken bones, and he's wailing and I'm kicking him while he's down. I'm kicking him in the stomach and kicking him in the face, and I keep kicking him and kicking him. That didn't happen. I'm sitting on the edge of my bed and I'm listening to my parents fight, and it escalates and escalates and gets louder and louder, and they don't even sound like human beings anymore. They sound like 2 jungle cats trying to tear each other's throats out. And it gets louder and louder, and all of a sudden I hear a thud and silence. And I stand up and I go to open the door, and I know if I touch the doorknob it's going to burn my hand like hot fire, but I have to do something, right? So I open the door and I go out in the hallway, and their door is broken and ajar, and my mother's laying on the floor and my dad's standing above her with his back toward me, and he's laughing. And I go into the room and I get in between them and I put my back to him. I can't even look at him, and I just say, "Leave. Will you just leave? Just leave." And I hear him leave the room and go downstairs and go out to the garage. And he gets in the car and he starts the car, and I hear his car leave on the gravel driveway, and he pulls out of the gravel driveway. My mom gets up and she's hysterical, and I'm holding her so close, and she tells me she was trying to clean up, and she was going through his wallet, and she found a letter from his girlfriend, and she thinks they're still together, and she confronted him about it, and he thinks that she's still dating her boyfriend, and maybe she still is, and this whole thing just blew up in both of their faces, and she's crying and crying, and I held her close. I didn't want her to run after him, and then like she just finally got hysterical and like cried herself out and like passed out, and I put her on the bed and covered up with a blanket, and I went into my room and I sat down and I laid there and I looked up for the ceiling for answers that would never come. Next morning about 11 o'clock, my dad came home. At about noon, my sister was brought home from that sleepover. I wanted to tell my sister about what happened the night before, but how do you tell somebody about something like that? I didn't have the words, so I just kept it to myself. And over the next couple of weeks, the four of us were like four ghosts on an abandoned ship in the middle of the cold winter ocean. Nobody spoke to each other. Nobody made any meals. If you walked into a room and somebody else was there, that person would leave. It was very cold in the house and very quiet in the house, and nobody said a word. We were just waiting until Christmas Eve midnight mass at St. Casimir's Church in Riverside, New Jersey. We're sitting in the third pew. It's my dad and me and my sister and my mom, and the place is packed. Everybody who's in all the kids that are there in the church are all the kids I went to school with. Their parents, all the adults used to be kids. My mom was a kid and they went to school together. This is everyone we know. This is our entire world. This is everybody. And the lights are down low and the choir's singing. And then Father Robert gets back at the back of the aisle and he's about to start mass, and there's that moment that I didn't take a breath. And right in that moment, my dad stands up. And he says, excuse me. He goes out the pew and up the aisle and past Father Robert, and he goes out the door, and the only sound you can hear in the church is the hydraulic door go shoo. And then every eye in the place turned to us. And my mom held it together as long as she could. It felt like 30 years, but it was probably only 30 seconds. And she said, come on, kids, let's go. And we stand up, excuse me. And we go out the pew and up the aisle and past Father Robert, and he's looking at me. I don't want his pity. And we walk out the door, shoo, and there we are in the cold winter night, and it's desolate. And we walk 2 blocks away. The car is parked. My dad's nowhere to be found, and the keys are on the hood of the car. And without a word, my mom opens the car and she drives me and my sister home. And without a word, my mom and my sister go upstairs. And I sit down on the couch in the living room, and I'm furious. Yeah, I told you so. I told them about what this was a bad idea. But you know what? I'm mad at him right now. Right now I'm mad at him because he could have chosen to do that 20 minutes before and no one would have known. He could have waited 40 minutes. Catholic masses are short. It would have been over. He could have done it. No one would have known. But he chose to do that right then and have our family disintegrate in front of everyone we know. And if I was furious, and if he was there in front of me, I would rush at him and I'd break his knee. And when he was on the ground, I'd kick his face and break his nose. But he wasn't there, so I just sat there and stewed in that anger for hours. So about 3 o'clock in the morning, and the door opens, and my dad walks in, and he walks past me, sits down on the edge of the couch, on the other end of the couch, and we're sitting there. He looks straight ahead. He doesn't look at me. He doesn't say anything. He doesn't say where he's been. He doesn't say I'm sorry. He doesn't give any explanation. He doesn't say Merry Christmas. He doesn't say a word. And in those hours that had passed, all the anger that I had turned back into what it always was, fear. And I was back in the place I always was, just afraid of my dad, and I couldn't say anything. And eventually, without a word, he stands up and he goes into the little extra room, and I hear him open up the sofa bed, and I hear his big body on those old rusty coils. And then I went upstairs, and the next morning, he was gone for good. And that year, I got what I always wanted for Christmas. My parents never got back together again. They got divorced soon after that. So my dad got remarried pretty quickly, and my sister moved in with him and his wife and her daughter, and it was just me and my mom in the house. My dad would try to come to my football games and my basketball games, and I would either ignore him or I would tell him to leave. I couldn't reconcile what I was seeing from the idea of a man that I was supposed to emulate. I didn't understand the motivations behind his choices that night, and then all these other choices. I started thinking about things that I'd seen him do as I was growing up. I couldn't reconcile that, so I had to vilify my father. I couldn't talk to him, and that's what I did to survive. That's what I did for me. It was my choice, and I was a kid when I made that choice, but if I had to do it again today, I would do the exact same thing. And I know it hurt him, but it was what I had to do. I couldn't figure this out, so I needed to isolate it and figure out some time. We would see each other every once in a while, and we'd get into a fight. We wouldn't talk for weeks, and we'd see each other and get into a fight. We wouldn't talk for months, and we'd see each other, and we get into a fight, and we wouldn't talk for years. And that's how it happened after that. I graduated from high school, and I got into Rutgers University in New Brunswick, and I took all the money for tuition out in loans because we couldn't afford it any other way. And I started going to school, and got a job at the library, and I got on the dean's list first semester, and I found this off-campus theater group, and I started doing plays and stuff, and it felt really good. I was doing sketch comedy and plays, and like for the first time, it felt like somebody was listening to me. It felt like my voice actually said something, and the people were receiving it. It felt really good. I met a bunch of weirdos, and started dating this girl, and I fell in love with her, and I met all these friends, and it was amazing, and everything was going to be fine. It was all going to work out. Everything was going to be perfect. How could it go wrong? At 23 years old, I'm sitting on the third floor of a flop house in New Brunswick, New Jersey. It used to be a fraternity house, and they rented out rooms by the month to people that needed a place to stay. I'd broken up with my girlfriend. I had started to distance myself from all my friends. I didn't tell anybody my phone number or where I lived. I was giving away my possessions to strangers. I was faxing obituaries to local newspapers. It was the year 2000. I guess that's how you did that. It just in my head. It just felt like there was just bees in my head. It just felt like I couldn't stop. Like somewhere in those years, it's all kind of hazy, and I couldn't even tell you right now a timeline of like how it happened or when it started, but like at some point, it stopped being quiet in here. It stopped. Everything just felt like there was a million bees in my head, and when the bees were there in between television stations, and it just doesn't, and I couldn't deal with it, and I dropped out of college, and I was just living in I walk up one day there's a hole in the ceiling of my bedroom, and I go up to the roof, and it's the highest point in New Brunswick, and I can see the train that goes through New Brunswick to New York City, and like all my friends, like most of my friends I was in college with, like a lot of them went to New York, and they started trying to be writers and do comedy and do all these things, and I wanted to do that so bad, but like that was up here, and I was down here, and my legs weren't strong enough to make that step, and besides, like it was all going to be over soon anyway. I didn't want to be in here. There was no rest. I wasn't sleeping or eating. It was nothing. Every single night before I went to try to go to bed, I would reach over to my bedside table where I kept an X-Acto knife, and I would trace my veins from the wrist to the elbow every night, from the wrist to the elbow, feather soft, from the wrist to the elbow, and every day it would get a little firmer, and in a couple of days the skin was going to break, and to be honest with you, I was really looking forward to that because I had fucked it all up, man. It was all over. I couldn't see a way out, and every morning at dawn before I passed out, I would call my mother, and she didn't know where I was, and she couldn't come to get me, and she was terrified, and she told me later that it was like gibberish and just paranoid ranting, and I didn't know what I was saying. I didn't realize I was ruining every single one of her days, and I just did this every morning. She tried everything. Peter, will you go to the gym? Peter, get outside. Peter, will you go to a doctor? Peter, will you go see a priest? Everything, and I just wasn't able to realize you're depressed. You're already so far down that narrow, deep well. It's got slick sides, and you're already so far down there that you're too weak to be able to climb up those slick walls. You're stuck there, and there's like fangs that are holding you down, and all you can see is a little circle of light up at the top, and maybe you have friends, and maybe they're looking down, and maybe they want to help, but you're way down at the bottom, and you think they're laughing at you, and there's no way that they can help anyway, and you're not strong enough to climb up those walls. So he says, like by the time you realize you're depressed, it feels like it's too late. And he says, listen, son, you're going to get some sleep tonight, you're going to take a hot shower, and then tomorrow I'll come up with a truck and we'll get you out of there. So the next day he came up with a truck, and we moved the broken remnants of my life in the back of this truck, and we drove down to South Jersey, and he took me to his doctor, and I sat in front of the doctor, and the doctor says, "Okay, Mr. Aguero, how can I help you?" And I just burst into tears, and that lasted for like 2 minutes, and then the doctor goes, "Okay," and he nods his head, and he reaches behind him, and he pulls out these pill samples. He says, "This is called Paxil. It's a serotonin reuptake inhibitor." And my mom's a nurse. She's been trying to get me to go on antidepressants and anti-anxiety medicine for years because I've been showing signs of this behavior for a long time. And I never wanted to do it because I always thought that would make me weak. Like, what is it to be a man? I should be a man. What does that even mean? Doesn't mean pills. But this time I felt like somebody was throwing me a rope, and like I figured, well, I should climb it. So I took him, I thanked the doctor. He gave me like a big box full of samples because I didn't have insurance, and this is America. So I went outside, and I tried to give my dad a hug, and then he dropped me off at my mom's house. She had sold the house and was living in a little townhouse, and we moved all my old crap onto her postage stamp size lawn. And then my dad, when it's all done, he says, "Okay, son, it's time for you to be a man. It's time for you to stand up and be counted." Then he gets in the truck and he drives away. And I was like, what does that mean? I don't even know what that means. Like, if you counted me right then, it'd be 0, man. So now I'm living in this bedroom in this house that I'd never been in before. Nothing got better. It was all the same every day. The bees were still there. It's like we packed up the bees and brought them back to my mom's house. And every day I would get up and I'd brush my teeth, and then I'd lay down on the floor with my face against the carpet because that's all the energy I would have to do anything. Every day. Get up, brush my teeth, lay down with my face against the carpet. My mom would come home and try to get me to eat. I wasn't eating. I was in the house. It was terrible. I couldn't shut my head up. Eventually one day, after like weeks of this, she brings the phone down, and like she's talking on the phone. She's like, "I know, Bob, but he's just laying on the floor." And okay. She puts the phone to my ears. My dad is like, "Son, get up. What are you doing? What are you doing?" And I'm just like, "I don't know. I ruined it all. I don't know what to do. I can't. This isn't working." It's like, "Oh, son, listen. Hold on for a couple of days. On Sunday, I'll come pick you up, and you'll come over and watch the game." So on Sunday, he comes and gets me, and I go out of the house, and I hadn't been out of the house since he dropped me off those weeks before. And I get in the, and it's like too bright. It's like I just got a solitary confinement. I get in the car, and we drive to his house. We go down to the basement. Me and my dad and his wife watched the Eagles game. The Philadelphia Eagles played the Green Bay Packers. The teams combined for 29 punts and 9 first downs. The score was 3-3 until 2 seconds left when Green Bay kicked a field goal to win 6-3. It was the worst fucking football game I'd ever seen in my life. And I spent 3 hours chewing on my finger trying to get to the bone. And afterward, my dad, he's driving me back to my mom's. Like, "What are you chewing on your finger for?" I was like, I don't know, man. And we pull up in front of my mom's house, and he pulls into the spot, and he turns off the car, and he says, "Son, what is wrong?" And I was like, "Man, look, I broke up with this girlfriend. And I know I loved her. I'm afraid that I lost that, and I'm afraid that's gone forever. But you know what? I feel like there's things I got to say. I feel like if I don't say these things, no one's going to say them. I'm not saying that these things are important or they're going to change the world. That doesn't matter. I just feel like if I don't get to say them, no one's going to say them. And it's going to be something that's missing in the world. I don't know what that means yet. Maybe I want to be a writer. Maybe I want to be an actor. I don't know. I just feel like if I don't get it changed." He goes, whoa, son. First of all, forget about the girlfriend, okay? She's gone. Move on. Second of all, son, stop trying to be special. That's what got you in trouble in the first place. Just be a cog in the wheel. That's what works for me. He says, "Son, the majority of people, most people in life, almost all people, the happiest time in their life is when they were 15 years old. And at some point, after that, they get a job and they live their life, and it's not always so great, but they remember when they were 15. And that's called nostalgia, and that's got to be good enough. Here's what you're going to do. Next Wednesday, you're going to come to my job. And you're going to talk to my boss. It'll be a formality, and we'll get you a job. It'll be a full-time job. It'll be good work, and you can save up some money, and you can get a car. You can save up some money. You can get an apartment, and then you can finally start your life. You can finally start your life, son. You can finally start your life." And I looked at him, and I said thanks, and I went in the house. And that Wednesday came, and I went to my dad's job, and I talked to his boss, and they gave me a gray pants job in the custodial department, and 40 hours a week, and I started my life. And on Friday, my dad and I go to the Jug Handle Inn in Maple Shade, New Jersey, and we flip a coin to see who's going to pay for the beer. That didn't happen. I thought really hard that night about what it meant for me to finally start my life. Like, what did that mean? And I woke up and I brushed my teeth, and I went downstairs, and I made some coffee. And the next day, I got up, and I brushed my teeth, and I went downstairs, and I sat outside in the sun, and I read a book. And the next day, I brushed my teeth, and I went downstairs, and I walked around the block. And the next day, I brushed my teeth, and I went downstairs, and I walked over to this little man-made pond by my mother's house. And I sat on this bench in the sun, and I was there for a couple of minutes, and then all of a sudden, these ducks came over, like 20 ducks, and they're like standing in front of me. They look like they want to listen, so I tell them everything. I tell them about my entire life and everything that happened to me when I was a kid, and like all the mistakes I made, and the fucking bees, and the pills, and everything. And like they didn't have a lot to say, but they were listening. And you know, the thing is, I think that's what I really needed. What I really needed was somebody that would actually listen to me. I didn't need somebody to come and fix my life to make it the way that they thought a life should be. I just needed someone to listen to me. That's all I needed. So when it was all done, I thanked the ducks, and I got up and I went home, and then my mom came home, we had dinner, and then the next day I woke up, I brushed my teeth, I went right to the pond, I sat down, the ducks came over, and together we hatched a plan. When that Wednesday came, it was time to go to my dad's job. I borrowed my mom's car and I drove up to Trenton, New Jersey, where my ex-girlfriend was living. When she got home from work, I asked her if I could make her dinner because she's a terrible cook. And we went inside and I made her dinner and I apologized to her. I told her I loved her so much and I begged her to take me back, and she said we'd give it a try. And then I just started hanging out with her, and I just started bringing stuff over, and then I just moved in. I didn't even ask her. I just like moved in. See, I'd gone to Rutgers University for 5.5 years. You needed 120 credits to graduate. In 5.5 years, I got 66 credits, which is almost harder than graduating, if you really think about it. Turns out in the state of New Jersey, you need 60 college credits to be a substitute teacher. So I got my substitute teacher certification, and they hired me back at Holy Cross High School. And my old history teacher needed to take a leave of absence, so they had me teaching a bunch of kids about the Civil War. And that's, you know, a lot of my teachers were still there, and they could tell that I'd been through the fire, and they didn't ask me much of anything, but they were there to support me, and it was the safest place in the world for me to learn how to become human again. And the bees stopped, and things started to go all right. And after a while, I asked my girlfriend to marry me, and she said yes. And then I saved up some money. I asked her if it was okay. She said yes. So I started using my money to spend on train tickets to go 2 hours each way from Trenton, New Jersey to New York City. And I started taking improv classes and going to open mics and meeting weirdos and making mistakes and doing all kinds of shit and like figuring it out. I didn't talk to my dad after that. I think he was disappointed that I didn't take him up on his offer. And I'm very grateful for my father. He saved my life. I want you to understand that. It was days away from being over, and my father saved my life, and I am so thankful for that. But I'm disappointed in the low regard that he held that life after he saved it. Like, time passed, and I did stand up, and if you counted me right now, you'd have to stop at 1. And we ended up, my girlfriend and I got married, and we ended up moving to New York City. We ended up moving to Queens, where we live today. I was doing all this different kind of weird East Village experimental performance art and figuring stuff out. And then one day I stumbled across this thing where you could go into the back room of a bar and people were telling stories about their lives, and it seemed pretty cool. So I started trying to do that, and I started telling stories about growing up. See, every single one of us, all of us, have all of our memories and experiences are inside of our heads, but there's a lot of the stuff that we don't want to think about because it's too painful. So we hide it underneath like old furniture and clothes and stuff in our brain because we don't want to think about it because it hurts too much. And after a while, when we keep it in the dark, it becomes a monster and it owns us. But when you start to tell stories about your life, when you shine a light on those things and you be as honest as you can about them, you see that they can't hurt you, and they stop owning you, and you start to own them. And I tell these stories, and I would see people in the audience nod their head because they went through something similar, and it made me realize I wasn't alone. And you know, those people nodding their head, they thought they went through a thing, and they were the only one that went through it, and I said it, and they realized they weren't alone. You know, somewhere along the lines, I found the words, and it was fucking magical. And I just kept doing that. And years went on, and I got all these crazy gigs. I was traveling the world. There was a brief period of time where my literal job, where I worked for a whiskey company in Scotland, my literal job was to travel around the world and tell stories and drink whiskey. That was my job. It was amazing. Even better than itself. So years had passed and years had passed. And I hadn't been home in about a year. I'm 35 years old, and I'm sitting on the couch at my mother's house, and I'm pinned down by an anvil of fear. I hadn't been home in a while. She like, it's been at least a year. She made me come home, promised to come home, because St. Cosmos was having a Polish food festival. And if there's any way that Polish people like to say I love you, it's eat this. So, I went home, and that's what I did. And saw some old friends, ate a lot of, gołąbki and kielbasa and pierogis. It was great. And then afterwards, we went back to my mom's house. My sister got off of work, and she comes over, and she says, to visit, and she says, you got to go see Dad. And I hadn't seen him in years at this point, like 7 years probably. And I said, no, I don't. And she said, he's got cancer. So I said, I guess I got to go see Dad. So I spend 2 hours sitting on the couch with this anvil of fear pinning me down. I can't get up. I can't go to the car. I can't go over there. I'm terrified. And my mom says, why can't you go? I said, I'm afraid. And she goes, what are you afraid of? I said, I'm afraid of Dad. She goes, you're afraid of your father? I was like, where the fuck have you been? Like all these years. Eventually, I asked my sister to come along with me for moral support. So I follow her over to the 2 towns over to where my dad lives, and we pull in front of the house, and we walk out, and we get up to the door, and we're standing there at the doorway, and I'm trembling. And she goes, Pete, I got to tell you, when Dad had his first round of chemotherapy, he Googled you, and he listened to all of your stories. And then she rang the doorbell. Yeah. So then the door opens, and my dad is there, and he sees my sister. He goes, what are you doing there? And he sees me. He goes, what are you doing here? And he opens the door wide, and there he is. He's not 8 feet tall anymore. He's shorter than I am somehow. His hair is gone, and his mustache is gone. He looks like, the only way I can explain it is he looks a lot like a thumb, and I'm trying to figure that out. Where he steps over to me and he pulls me into a hug, and he rests his head on my shoulder, and after 10 seconds I feel him start to shake, and I feel him start to cry. And I don't know what to do, and he leans back and he says, this is weird, huh? I'm like, yeah, man, this is fucking weird. And he goes, do you want some coffee? I said, yeah, sure. And his wife made some coffee, and then me and my dad and his wife and my sister Michelle sat on his back deck. And it's one of those last October Saturdays where the sunshine is golden, super pure golden, and you can smell the burning leaves on the air, and you know that this sunshine is not long for this earth, but you're there right now, and it's perfect. And for an hour, we're talking about nothing. We're 4 people talking around the baggage, talking about politics and football and nothing. He's like, look, I got lymphoma. It's very treatable. It's going to be fine. They took out my spleen. It was 17 pounds. It looked like a roast beef. You want to see a picture? I said, yeah. He went in the house and brought out this picture of his doctor holding what I thought was a roast beef. He goes, that's my spleen. I was like, that's nuts. So the sun starts to go down. It starts to get chilly. And my sister and his wife go inside. And it's just the 2 of us sitting out there. And it's just the 2 of us. And he looks over at me. He says, son, do you ever think about your life? And I said, yeah, man, all the time. And we start to have this conversation. We start talking about being a man and what that means, and getting older and what that means, and being married and how hard that is and how great that is, and all this stuff. We start to have this magical conversation that I've always wanted to have with this imaginary version of my father that I've long ago buried and mourned. We started to have this conversation that I've always dreamt about it, but I knew it was impossible. And this dome comes over the 2 of us, and we're the only people in the universe. It was the most amazing experience I've ever had. It was unbelievable. And at some point during this conversation, we're sitting in a companionable silence, and we'd never had a companionable silence before. So I figure, well, I'm gonna push all my chips in the middle of the table. So I say, Dad, I got to tell you, I don't like you very much. And he smiles and he nods his head. He says, son, I don't like you very much either. I said, yeah, okay, cool. He says, well, we haven't talked to each other in a long time. I said, yeah. He said, that seems to be working. Why don't we keep doing that? I'm like, yeah, that sounds awesome. If it turns out you're dying, have somebody give me a call. He's like, I don't have your number. I was like, get it from Michelle. He says, okay. He stands up and we shake hands on the deal. For the first time in my life, I walk away from my father feeling like $1 million. Like I'm all jaunty, like all the weight is off. I feel like for the first time in my life, I walk away from my dad not feeling like I need to go directly to a bar. I get in the car, I drive to a liquor store. I'm going to a party. I got to get a bottle. It's a technicality. And before I go in the liquor store, I call my mom. I tell her what happened. She said, wait, you just said goodbye to your father? I was like, yeah. She goes, that's so sad. I was like, no. It's a great thing. You don't understand. I call my wife, and she'd met my dad a couple times over the years. And, she says, You know, that sounds like the kind of agreement two weirdos would come up with, so it makes a lot of sense. I was like, yeah. She says, have fun. I said, okay, baby, I will. And I got a bottle, went to a house party, saw some more. It's a house party, you know, high school house party, come on. It wasn't high school students, like people I went to high school with. Jeez. So 2 days later, I get back home. That actually happened 6 years ago yesterday. Or Saturday. Well, no, yesterday, because it was the time. So, how do you like that? So, I get back home, and I go back to my life. And then a couple weeks later, I'm sitting in my living room. It's a Tuesday afternoon. I have a show tonight. I'm trying to figure out, like, do I smoke this joint first or play these video games first? This is the life I've set up for myself. I'm pretty happy with it. I get a call from an unknown number, so I pick it up, and it's my dad. He says, hey, son, I got to tell you, I got some results back from the doctor. The cancer's in remission. I'm going to be okay. It's not going to kill me. Something else will, I'm sure. I was like, okay, well, congratulations. He says, yeah. Then he says, your sister broke up with that boyfriend of hers. I was like, yeah, but I think she'll be okay. He goes, yeah, I think she will be too. And then he goes, okay, that's 2 things we agree on. I don't want to push it for 3. And he hangs up the phone. For the record, I smoked the joint first. A couple weeks later, it's my birthday, and I wake up, and there's a voicemail from that unknown number. Happy birthday. Fuck it. Happy birthday, son. It's my dad. And it makes me mad for 2 reasons. One, he's breaking the deal, man. We shook on it. But number 2, with him calling me like this is making me want to talk to him again. It's making me want to try to have a relationship with him again. And I promised myself years ago that I would never do that because down that road only lies pain. So I didn't call him back. And I never got another call from that number. And time went on. About a year later, I get a text from my cousin in Philadelphia that my grandmother, my dad's mom, my grandmother, my nanny, she's on her way out. She has Alzheimer's. And I want to go down there and see her. So I go down to see her, and my aunt won't let me in to see my grandmother because my family is a poisonous den of spiders. So I call my dad, and I tell him what happened. He says, come over, we'll talk about it. So I go over to his house, and I tell him what happened. He goes, my sisters are assholes. I don't even talk to any of them. It's your grandmother. You can go see her if you want. I'm like, okay, that could have been done over the phone. Why did you call me over here? He said, I looked on the internet, and I saw an interview you gave about telling stories about family. Do you tell stories about me? I was like, well, I tell stories, and they're, from my point of view, they're really stories about me. They're not about you. But, yeah, I tell stories about family and growing up and stuff. He says, you can't tell stories about me. I said, why? He says, because I'm your father. I said, what does that mean to you? And he looked at me and said, it means I'm your father. I said, look, man, I'm working on this stuff, and it's important to me, and I need to get to the other side of it. And it might be important to other people. I can't worry myself with that, but I got to do this as best I can. And this is very important to me. It's something I'm working on. You are welcome to come. You are welcome to come see this. You're welcome to not come. That's your choice. Like, it's totally cool. It's all true. I'm not making anything up. I'm being as honest as I can be. Okay? I'm trying to stay as close to the truth, but I'm going to do this. He says, you know what, son? I always kind of liked you, but you've always been really hard to love. And I said, don't you mean that the other way around? And he looked at me and he said, no, that's exactly how I mean it. And I said, yeah? And he said, yeah. And I said, okay. And I turned around and I walked out of his house. And that was the last time I spoke to my father. One more quick thing before I go. When I was 21 years old, I just turned legal, so I'm with my dad at the Jug Handle Inn in Maple Shade, New Jersey, the best dive bar in New Jersey, therefore the best dive bar in the world, and we're drinking beer and eating chicken wings, which is what you're supposed to do when you turn 21. You're supposed to drink beer and eat chicken wings with your dad in a bar. And I'm telling him about college. He's telling me about work and all this stuff. We're going back and forth. He says, you know what I saw the other day at ShopRite? I said, no, who? He said, you'll never guess. I'm like, fucking tell me. He says, Mike Dawes. That kid's a prick. He says, yeah. Do you remember when you went to go fight him when you were a kid at Nellie's Pond? I said, yeah, I remember that. He said, do you know, after you left the house, I waited a couple minutes and I went around the long side of the pond and I hid in the bushes across the way. And I watched you stand there in the middle of the ice and I knew you were scared. And I saw you stand there and I was never more proud of you than I was in that moment. And that's my dad. I always kind of liked you, but you've always been really hard to love. That's my dad. I think a little piece of my dad was broken when his dad threw him down the stairs when he was a little boy. I think another piece is still in that orphanage in Philadelphia. I think another piece was shot and killed in Vietnam, and another one withered and died in that shitty marriage that he had with my mother. And all he had left for himself was enough to survive. There wasn't enough left for him to be a father. And I think he tried, and I think he did the best that he thinks he could, but frankly, it just wasn't good enough. And that's okay. Long ago, I've forgiven myself for what I always thought was my fault in that relationship. I was a kid. I did what I had to do to survive. He was an adult. He did what he had to do to survive. He's got to deal with that now. That's on him. That's not on me. I'm not carrying that. That's not mine to carry. Because every step I took away from the life I had when I grew up, a piece of me grew. Every person I met, every word I wrote down, everything I created, every hug I gave, every choice I made to be kind rather than cruel or cutting made me bigger than I ever was before. I like the man that I've become. I make a lot of mistakes. I'm not perfect, but I try my hardest to not make the same mistakes more than once, but I still do. I'm flawed, but like I did it myself. I did it myself, and I'm really proud of who I am. I'm really curious to meet the guy I'm going to be in the future. You know, my best days weren't when I was 15. My best days are ahead of me, and they always will be. I'm looking forward to meeting that guy I'm going to be in the future. He's already cooking up stuff that's going to surprise me. I can't wait to meet that guy. He's a complete mystery to me, except for one thing. That man will never be his father's son. Thank you. Very Iowa nice of you. I want to thank you. I don't think anybody here knew that's what they were coming here to do tonight, and I want to thank you for not bolting 20 minutes in when it stopped being funny. I'd be remiss if I didn't, before we finish up for the evening, I need to thank all the TAs and the students with the Green Room. You guys really give them a round of applause. You guys really nailed it. It's a beautiful thing. So right after the show, as is the tradition with the Green Room, this is the final public session. Right after the show, we're going to be going over to Merge over there on the Ped Mall, and we'll sit down and we'll have a conversation. We'll see, how this fits in, how this whole semester has fit in, what you guys have learned. If you have any questions for me, if you have questions for each other, if you just have something to say, whatever it is, even if we could just sit there for 5 minutes silently, I'm totally cool with that. Like, that's a comfortable thing for me. I'm all right with that. But if you're interested in doing that, come on over. I think there's such beautiful things happening in this town. This is probably the 7th or 8th time I've been back to Iowa City, and every time I leave another little piece of me here. So you have all my Horcruxes are here in Iowa City. I can trust you guys with them. It's a beautiful place, so we're gonna do that. But to close us out for this evening, I'm gonna bring up a very, very dear friend of mine. Met him when we were working in Las Vegas on a crazy project, and it seems like Iowa City sends this advanced scout out into the rest of the world to go cherry pick awesome, cool shit and bring it back to Iowa City. He is one of the absolutely kindest, sweetest, amazing human beings I've ever met. He is literally the hardest working man in Iowa City. I don't know how many full-time jobs he has, more than I can count, and I can count pretty high. I dropped out of college, but here's a sign of what an amazing human being he is. He just is always saying to me, I want to do something meaningful, and when you try to tell him, do you understand how amazing it is, the things that you're doing? His answer is, oh, I'm trying. So right now, I would like you to let him know how amazing he really is. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dave Gould.
Thank you. It's getting late, so I want to make this quick because I'm hoping some of you will join us at the Merge. I would like the community to thank my students. This, as I told them before, this was an experiment, right? And the idea was, what if you took 80 students, you got the biggest place you could find, and you invited the community to join you? What if we learned together? What if we tried to make Iowa City and our community a little better? And, people ask, what will we do next? And I'm asking the community to help us with that. My answer is the students and community will tell us the answer. So, go on our Facebook, email me, email my TAs. Please let us know how this worked for you and whether we should give it another try. If you could, I would just like the community to thank my students for sharing the classroom. My list of thank yous is way too long. It's from the Englert Theatre to the people that have supplied meals for the guests, to the merge where we're headed to, where there's a guy sitting there with a door open waiting, wondering where the heck we are. To my TAs that took the class in the fall and decided to come back and share it with another group of students, to Alanda and Dan and Jordan and the people that had nothing to do with this class that decided to come every Monday just to help the students make it happen. So I want us all to go to the merge so you get a chance to see from Peter. I want to make Iowa City a better place. And again, trust me, it starts with the young students we got here, so young adults. Thank you so much.